and welcome to Logan Sounds Off, where I talk about books, music, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Logan Kelly. Hello and welcome back to Logan Sounds Off. Today on my podcast, I'm going to be reviewing one of the most influential and one of the most inspirational albums ever. It's a must-have in your collection, and it's called Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. And Miles Davis has worked with many people, but on this particular album, he worked with Julian Cannonball Adderley, Paul Chambers, James Cobb, John Coltrane, Bill Evans and Wynton Kelly. All incredible musicians, and it was great to hear them all in this particular album called Kind of Blue. And just something interesting for those who love Miles Davis, if you don't know this, it says here on the back, because there's actually a thing that Bill Evans wrote, who was the pianist, along with Wyn Kelly, who also was playing piano on this. Anyways, Bill said in Improvisation in Jazz, he said, Miles conceived these settings or tracks or songs only hours before the recording dates and arrived with sketches which indicated to the group that was to be played. That is incredible, and the way they played it perfectly, it was just really interesting. And actually, Bill mentions later in that particular piece of writing, which I think is very interesting, he mentions how spontaneous this is. And to be honest, I know it's kind of weird me doing a jazz album when I usually do a lot of rock and roll albums. And the reason for this is because I've been trying to be a lot more eclectic with what I'm listening to, and also because of a book that I got from my Auntie Gillian. So big shout out to her for getting me this, the greatest albums to own on vinyl ever. This contains stuff from 10 from Pearl Jam, Bad from Michael Jackson, Unknown Pleasures from Joy Division, Ramones, The Ramones, Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy, which I've actually done a review on my podcast before, Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Blood, Sweat and Tears by Blood, Sweat and Tears, The Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, and in one of the first albums actually in this is Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. So there it is. I don't have the same album cover, but you know, it's still the same album and the same beautiful music, as you will hear my opinion throughout this album review. So on the first song, which is called So What, or Setting, as in that I never actually knew that they use setting sometimes in jazz, because they called all the songs in this settings, which I think is very interesting. So the first setting then is called So What, and this starts off really brilliantly, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the second time or the third time I heard this album, I've listened to it a good amount of times now. The second time or third time I listened to this album, I listened to it with headphones. So some of my notes have come from that particular experience. And what I really liked was the piano kind of creeped in, and it just slowly, the volume came up in your ears, and then instruments came in, and the drums came in. James Cobb played the drums on this particular LP, and I actually have a lot to say about him in a sec. But with this incredible build-up piano, it's just really, really interesting, and it gives a bit of not a tone, but an atmosphere to kind of surround yourself with while you're listening to the album, and I really like that. But then, when the drums kick in, James Cobb, I know obviously he might have not wrote the whole thing, but he played the drums brilliantly. I loved it. I have never really said, wow, listening to a jazz record going, they are a great jazz drummer. This was the first time, and I have to say, James Cobb is amazing on the drums. He just, on the other tracks, he's definitely very good, but not as good as on So What. And just really incredible track. And that's what when I was listening to it, that's what stood out to me. Usually when I'm listening to rock, it'd be the guitar, When I'm listening to electronic music, it will be the drums. When I'm listening to punk music, it would be the bass guitar. There's so many different instruments, so the drums don't usually come in there unless kind of rock genre. But jazz, I didn't expect this. So I kind of had a bit of a, when I listened to this album that time with the headphones on, it's a whole new experience. So I definitely listened to this with headphones. But then you have another track called Freddie Freeloader. And first of all, I kind of went, whoa, what a name. So I really kind of, the name threw me off a bit, to be honest. So there are so many unique names on this album. So What, Freddie Freeloader, Blue in Green, Flamenco Sketches, and All Blues. All Blues is a very kind of realistic perspective to look at the track, but I think that's interesting. But back to Freddie Freeloader, before I continue on with the tangent. The soft drums really leave a beat there to stand by, and I know jazz music can sometimes have very odd time. I believe the term is just the timing on it. It's so interesting. Like, might be 6, 8, 3, 4. I really think that's cool, and that's why I like jazz, because it confuses me. I don't understand jazz properly. I'm not a professional musician. I don't know full terms regarding music. I do love music and I create music, but I don't know the full terms sometimes when it's to do with genres that I'm not too familiar with, like jazz. But I think this was very interesting because there was a beat there to kind of return back on. And I find that Wynton Kelly is incredible on the piano on this, as well as Bill Evans. They're both just incredible pianists. And Miles was very good on the trumpet. And I really love actually John Coltrane on this album, on the tenor saxophone. That's really cool. So, and also, one interesting fact is it finishes how it started. I love that. Then you have Blue and Green, and this is a very relaxed, calming piece of music. And I feel that, unlike the other tracks, the trumpet led the way. And this was very interesting to me because I wouldn't usually pick an instrument like that to kind of lead me into a track. But I thought that was very interesting, so that's why I enjoyed Blue and Green. It was kind of like downtime after the rest of the side. And then you go on to side 2, and it's just back in. There's no kind of returning intro, it's just flamenco sketches. And this particular setting is rather odd because you have your section of an instrument, and it's playing the same for a loop for a little while. Not too long, not too short either. It's perfect, the happy medium. Then the instruments carry on, but one instrument goes off on one. And then that stays going off on one. And then another instrument changes. I think that's very interesting. And this happens until the end when it returns back to what it was. Love that. Really like that. And now we've come to the last song, and all I have to say about All Blues is it's a fantastic and very peaceful setting to end. So what do I think of this album? See, I don't know because I don't have a lot of things to compare it to. But I don't think there's going to be a skewed rating. I'm going to push, not because people like Miles Davis, not because I want to be kind of going, oh yeah, I love him too, and trying to impress people. I actually genuinely think he's good. And I'm going to rate this a 5 stars for my first Miles Davis album to listen to front to back. And I hadn't heard this before I bought it on record in Tower Records for €19.98 on blue vinyl, which is incredible. So I was very happy with that. But no, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like Miles Davis as much as I do. And if you enjoyed the album review, make sure to check out my others. Bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Logan Sounds Off. You can follow me on X, Facebook and Instagram at Logan Sounds Off. And don't forget to subscribe and not miss any more cool episodes. Bye guys!